r/AskReddit. Redditors who are not in love with their SOs, why are you still with them? My sister is a massive piece of shit. Constantly calls her husband limpy in front of people, in reference to his supposed limp dick. Tells him that she wishes he'd get in a car and drive off a cliff. I'm not saying she does this just when they are arguing. I mean she does this literally every single day, not even angry at him. He's been dealing with this bullshit for 20 plus years out of the 30 years they've been together. The reason he does not leave here is that she would be homeless if he did. She has a bunch of felonies for theft, identity theft, prescription forgeries, etc. She used to be a nurse, had a decent career. Now she wouldn't be able to get a job anywhere. He knows that if he were to leave her, there's a decent chance she'd die on the streets. Other than him, everyone has abandoned her at this point. Just a side note, he is an incredibly honest person. Never steals, does not do drugs, goes to work every single day and works hard. Edit. Here are some text messages between them that their son, my nephew, sent me. I guess his mom sent them to him to show that their father did not deny abusing her. The husband doesn't look great here, but I can't honestly blame him at this point. I spent a couple of years living in their house a while back, and I can say that I never saw the dude get angry, be abusive, or anything else. Maybe he's had enough at this point and is fighting back. Not sure. However, in the time I spent living there I had my sister steal everything out of my wallet, sign up for credit cards in my name, watched her abuse him and the kids, emotionally, nearly every day, etc. Overall, it's just a very sad situation. Not in the relationship anymore. I'm a 24 meters. I met a girl my junior year of college and thought I had gotten over my previous relationship a year later. The difference between the two relationships were night and day and they both lasted a year, but the one I'm discussing was my worst. I remember really liking her the first 3 months and the sex was good as well as the amount of time we spent together, but as time progressed she became controlling and manipulative. She was always the victim, I was always the bad guy. We never had a good date after those first 3 months. If a girl I knew said hi to me, that was it for the whole day. If I wanted to spend time with my guy friends then there was some gay stuff going on. She had to constantly know where I was, what I was doing, and who was messaging me. I remember I couldn't even sit down to text my mom without her looking over my shoulder. The relationship became draining. I never had any money. I was constantly spending time with her, even if I was studying for class and doing homework. If I asked for a break or some me time I didn't love her anymore. She constantly wanted to have sex, which might seem like a dream to most guys, but it really wears you out and down. If I didn't want to have sex, but rather wanted to be lazy and just cuddle then I was not attracted to her anymore. I remember having sex with her sometimes just out of guilt. The sex started to be bad because I just wasn't enjoying it or her. She met my parents a total of 3 times and I saw hers more than I can count. She wasn't into family events or getting to know my friends. I broke up with her and at first felt terrible about it, but as time has moved on I realized I didn't love her and wanted out of feeling like I was the bad guy all the time when really I just needed a break from it all. Sometimes relationships just change and you think you know someone when you don't. I would be lying if I said I was perfect in the relationship, but what I know is I was never negative towards her the same way she was me. I really wish her and I could have remained friends, but it is best we didn't. I would like to tell her I hope she is doing well and is happy, but she hates me so sometimes you just have to move on. From 21. 26 I was in a relationship with a girl who claimed to be madly in love with me. I don't think she was, since she constantly tried to change and mold me into someone else, and I definitely was not in love back. We had discussions about it every 3 to 6 months and my answer never changed. I care about you very much, but I'm not in love. I didn't leave her because I was too much of a pussy to break her poor heart. Many times I suggested we just be good friends and she immediately would go into begging mode and it would make me feel so bad. I would stay. so I ended up just full on focusing on my career and letting the relationship go on without any real fulfillment or goals. After the 4.5-year mark, everyone started pressuring me to marry her, both families, friends, her. No one except myself really knew how miserable I was in the relationship because I hid it so well and was too embarrassed to tell anyone. Our relationship was absolutely terrible at this point. We fought literally every day. I never fell in love with her, which made her extremely upset every day, and we pretty much just chalked it up to let's keep going. Maybe it'll happen once we get a house together, etc etc etc. For the record, this doesn't work. Neither does having babies or getting married. After an enormous amount of pressure and really just not caring anymore, I said fine, and I bought a ring. It made everyone around me extremely happy. Her family loved me, mine loved her, except me of course. We were supposed to get married exactly 1 year later in Mexico. Her parents, rich, rushed to pay for the entire wedding, hotel costs, airline tickets, the works. Came out to around $50,000 I sure within 24 hours of me proposing. They also bought her a $7,000 dress that next week. I knew I did not want to marry her, and I knew what I was doing was wrong. I knew if I went through with it, I would have a long miserable life. This girl was very insecure, codependent, and our relationship was pretty terrible at this point for obvious reasons. At this point, my business was taking off and nearing $1 million a year in sales. I started it at 23. Now, at 26, I have no debt, a large amount of savings, and was about to purchase my first home. She on the other hand had been in college since before we met, had yet to graduate, and was around $40,000 in debt. I attempted to talk her into a prenup. I was laughed at and told absolutely not, and also told that once we were married, everything we had would be split 50/50. The house would be both of ours, my savings would be used to pay off her debt, and then be split between us, etc. I was falling straight into a horrible spot emotionally, far from being in love, and financially for the reasons stated above. Not to mention, I don't want kids, and she stated numerous times the first thing that would happen after the wedding is we would have minimum 2 kids. She didn't ask, she demanded this. She became extremely controlling after I proposed. She was always very controlling, but this was another level. It's like she knew I was locked in. Crazy. At this point I was obviously deathly afraid to call off the wedding. Everyone around me was so happy for us, but there I was, in a dark hole all by myself. I knew I really screwed up big time. This was all my fault, and I was well aware. I gave in to the pressure of what everyone else wanted, and didn't put myself first. I was so scared I would lose my family and friends if I called it off. I also knew what I had to do if I wanted to live the rest of my life happy. So about 4 months after the proposal, I called it off. We got into another daily fight about whatever small thing it was, and I just said fuck it and did it. I called her mother and told her how I truly felt and how I could not marry her daughter in good faith. I was not in love, and I did not want to spend the rest of my life with her. I really screwed up. I had a good relationship with her mother. I actually liked her entire family a lot more than I liked my fiancé. The parents were obviously devastated yet relieved I was telling them this now, so that it would not end in divorce later. My fiancé begged me, threatened to end her life, etc. There was nothing I could do but apologize and tell her that one day she will find someone that is in love with her back, and only then will she realize that what I did was for the best for both of us. I cut her parents a check for all the wedding costs and we moved on. Haven't talked to any of them since the week I broke everything off. My family rushed to my side, shocked but concerned for my well-being. It all worked out extremely better than I could have imagined. I didn't lose any family or friends, rather gained their respect even more. Turns out a lot of people are in this situation, or married already, and too afraid to leave. My actions actually gave some of them some kind of hope. My aunt is in a terrible marriage and this kind of kick-started her leaving, for example. 1 year later, and I'm the happiest I have been in years. I still have nightmares of going through with the wedding, standing up there saying I do, knowing Damn well I do not. Smiling to family and friends telling me congratulations while hiding in my feelings. What a nightmare. I'm so happy I actually called it off. I was so miserable a year ago vs today. My life has changed so much and all for the better. My ex finally graduated college and started her career. We don't speak, but sometimes I check her social media just to see how she's doing, and it appears she's doing very well. She started working out. Her career is taking off, and she seems happy. It makes me happy to see her happy. In the end, she is a great person, just not right for me. She deserves happiness, and so do I. I think if I never did what I did, we would both be stuck in that same terrible relationship. Both unhappy and both unfulfilled. Listen to yourself. Listen to your heart, and listen to your gut. There is always a way out. Sure, having to pay alimony or split custody would suck. But it's much better to lose money than to be stuck with someone you're not happy with. I would gladly pay $50,000 over and over again to feel the way I do now. Love and happiness are some of the few things money can't buy. Don't give it up because you're afraid. Being in love is the greatest feeling in the world. If you're not in love, you're not living your best life. The process of leaving sucks, but afterwards life is incredible. Break free. Do what you need to do. You won't regret it. I was one of the many above, and probably below, that felt in a trap. I have a 10 and 14 years old boys, and I was stuck with my wife of 15 years. She was dumb, not willing to get a better job, not taking a good care of the kids and our house, and always messing up things, like forgetting to pay a CC bill, or something else. It got so bad that we were always unhappy, and one morning I've asked her straight up, do you want to get a divorce? I'm a happy person, and you are always bumming me down. She agreed. We've notified our parents. The kids and I signed the papers, which she prepared promptly and correctly in an ironic twist of what I've said about her above. Now, here is where things got interesting. As I was waiting for the process to finish, I started running, meditating, and reading a lot of self-helping books, the first of which called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F*** CK. Interesting thing happened after few weeks. I began changing my opinion about myself. I was the rude, dumb and ungrateful one. I managed to understand that my wife was another unique human being with her own fears, regrets, and reasons. She wanted the same thing as me, to be happy and loved. She was like me, though, not wanting to take the first step, as she did so many compromises already. Long story short, once realized that the problem was always me and not her, and once I understood what you must be the change you wish to see in the world, really meant, I was able to fall in love with my wife again. A year has passed by, the signed documents are collecting dust, and we are happier than ever. The whole family is united and loving even more than before. Love comes and goes, but having the proper person next to you, respecting and fighting alongside your shoulder every day is something that is very hard to come by, and you should never take for granted. Once you realize that people around you want the same things like you, are getting angry at the same things as you, and cherish the same things as you, the empathy will do its deed, and you'll be happy again. I can sort of answer this, but from my past. The last girl I dated was kind of immature. I was a few years older than her. She just got out of high school, but I'm fairly mature for my age, and I didn't really smoke or drink or anything when we met, and she was obsessed with going out and drinking all the time. She developed ITP, idiopathic thrombocytopenic purpura, which is a rare blood disorder that pretty much makes your body kill off your own platelets, and your blood starts to pool and swell in certain parts of your body, and you begin to internally bleed. Dropping below a certain level in platelets, around 10,000 or whatever, you are at increased risks for brain bleeds, because a small capillary or whatever in your brain can burst, and it will never stop bleeding. When we first discovered it, I was the one who took her to the hospital. I had to drive 30 minutes from my house to hers, and drive her and her mom. Her mom refused to drive her to the hospital because she can't see well at night, and also insisted it was no big deal. When we got her to the hospital, They ran blood tests and they discovered that she had 0 platelets. They couldn't find a single one anywhere in her body, and it was the most severe they ever saw. The hospital we went to said they don't have any specialists who could treat her, and she needed to go to another hospital 30 minutes away. The hospital should called an ambulance because God forbid we got into a crash or she bumped her head or something, she would died. But the shitty hospital told us it would be quicker just to drive, so we did. Next we get to the new hospital and I sit with her the entire time until the nurses tell me that I need to leave because I'm not family and it's well past visiting hours. Anyways, they tell her that it's a disease that isn't really caused by anything. It just sort of happens to some people. They weren't sure if it was going to be chronic or just a one-time thing, because some people have it for life and some people have one incident and everything goes back to normal. However, there isn't many medications and stuff out there, or a cure or anything, so they just have to keep making sure her platelets are high and everything will be fine. However, any medication they could give her would mean she had to stop drinking. Alcohol is a natural blood thinner, and she can't be killing off a few platelets just because she wants to have fun or whatever. She also had to go back for weekly checkups. Her mom insists that this happened to her because she was eating unhealthy. Her mom is the type to shop at Whole Foods and spend $60 but come back with a bunch of tomatoes and celery and not anything else, and they would be out of food and money come halfway to the next paycheck because her mother would not buy what bar sale or at a regular supermarket because it's not as healthy for you. Her father told her that this was literally a scourge from God because she doesn't go to church. He told her to go to church and read the Bible because God is punishing her for not listening. Meanwhile, I'm the one driving her back and forth to the hospital every week, an hour out of my way, because neither one of her parents could be bothered to do so, and she couldn't afford a car. On top of all this, she was very moody and whining all the time because she couldn't go drinking every night, and also the first medication they started her on was some form of steroids, which made her extremely hormonal, and she started gaining weight quickly. I didn't care what she weighed or anything because you can always lose weight, and quite frankly she had bigger problems to deal with, such as staying alive. Finally, on the way back from her weekly hospital trips, I would buy her lunch because, as previously mentioned, they frequently had nothing to eat in her house because her mother had to buy fruits which lasted her about 3 days with her weekly food budget. So here I am, spending my gas money, my money on food, my time where I could been spending time with my friends and family, all because I'm keeping my girlfriend alive for months. Due to the hormones she was on, she developed a very bad temper and would constantly yell at me, telling me stupid shit, and she would frequently tell me that I was full of shit and that I didn't love her and that I didn't care about her and stuff. And honestly, when you're the only one in this person's life going out of their way to make sure they are staying alive, when they tell you every day that you don't care for them or love them, it starts to really hurt, seeing as literally everything you do for them is being unappreciated. So I ended up losing feelings for her romantically, but I obviously still cared about her because it's hard to have such attachment to one person and then just separate entirely, especially when you know that if you do, that she would quite literally die because no one else would help her or watch over her. So I stayed with her for months. After about 4 or 5 months of lost feelings, a total of about 8 or 9 months into her treatments, the weekly checkups turned into bi-weekly and monthly checkups. They started to back off the medication and her symptoms were going away. Her dad scraped together enough for a used car for birthday the following year, and I kinda just backed away. I broke up with her soon after, and I've been single for almost 2 years now. By now no one will read this, so I'll post my reasons. But first, a little background. I guess I loved my wife of 6 years, together for 10, at some point. I must have married her, but maybe I was just too non-confrontational to stand up for myself. Met in college at 20, dated 6 months, and moved in together. I didn't want to because it was too fast, but she did, so we did. Then we talked about engagement. I didn't think we should because it was so soon, but she wanted to, so we did. That was a year in. We got married a year and a half after, which I thought was too soon. I never wanted to live in the state we live in, but when you marry a girl from this state you end up here, so we did. Then she wanted a kid. I wasn't ready, but she wanted one, so we did. Then we needed a house. I didn't want a house yet and wasn't ready, but she wanted one, so we did. Right after my daughter was born things got worse. She always treated me like somewhat of a servant, but after her maternity leave I took my leave. Daughter bonded more with me than her, so in addition to doing all the housework, cooking and cleaning, working, taking care of daughter and dog. Oh, forgot that I didn't want a dog, but she did, so we got one. I fell into depression. Drinking was my escape, and I was drinking 125 plus ounces of beer a night. For 2 years. Every night wishing I wouldn't wake up, but for some reason I did. Then someone else came into my life. She made me feel everything I ever wanted to. Love, appreciation, makes me feel sexy and wanted, valued, makes me want to be better both for her and for me. She thinks my hobbies and interests are so interesting. I'm on top of the world. I get in amazing shape dropping 40 pounds in 6 months. She's in a similar situation and tells me I'd be the perfect husband, wants to be with me, how great we'd be as a blended family, how great of an influence I'd be on her son. We all are great together, and I'm 100% confident we will be together before too long. I can't stress how happy I am. Long story, kind of. Short, one day she flips a switch and ends everything. We still occasionally text, but I'm dead inside. I know that I would never find anyone who could make me feel even close to the same way, and honestly there's no point. Not like I'm prime real estate. My wife and I started having huge fights about the same time, where she throws divorce around to threaten me. I honestly don't care if she would, although it would ruin me financially, and even though I missed a mom I'd probably see my daughter, who is my world, every other weekend. I did the financial shit, and even though I make good money and have 2 side hustles I'd be bent over money wise. The house that I never wanted would fuck me with something hard and sandpaper. Why? Not to mention my own separate rent, health insurance, car payment and insurance, utilities, food. The list goes on. So how do I know I'm out of love? I don't hate her, but I'm repulsed by her. I can't stand her presence. I can't stand when she tries to be affectionate toward me. Honestly, I wish she would just walk away and leave me with my daughter and the house. I wouldn't care if she died a painless death. I don't wish ill on her because I'm the asshole here, but I know I'm stuck for the rest of my life. So basically I'm back to drinking and wishing for death. So yeah, I have a lot going for me. I'm not in this situation anymore, but I was before. Here's why. Basically, divorce is still so stigmatized when it's for reasons that fall outside the holy trinity of socially acceptable causes: abuse, infidelity, and untreated addiction. People are very uncomfortable with divorce, so someone considering it for other reasons knows they are in for a ton of judgment and very little support if they go that route. I was married for 11 years. I was unhappy for 8 and knew beyond a doubt that I'd have to end the marriage at some point for 5. I stayed that long because, honestly, I was trying to be okay with staying married to this person with whom I was so completely incompatible in the long run. I married really young and didn't know I could ask for more than someone who treated me well, that I could also want someone who was interesting and intelligent and had good financial management practices. My ex-husband is a very nice person, but it took me a long time to really see that just because someone is nice to me doesn't mean I owe them the rest of my life, and that it really is okay to leave if it's clear that you're just on 2 completely separate paths. Also, his financial practices were terrible enough that the only way I could ever save any money was to hide it from him, and then I'd end up having to spend what I'd saved because he'd somehow overdraw our bank account just as rent was due or something, so I had no idea how I'd afford to get out. This was actually a huge factor in why it took me so long to leave. I left when I saw a logistical reason, that I had to, and a way out that I could afford, a PhD program offer that came with housing. His financial practices were such that retirement savings weren't happening, despite an income that was more than sufficient to do that. Also, I'd been trying to get him on board with buying a house for years by then, and he would always get really excited and show me house listings, drive around and collect flyers for houses that were for sale, and even call realtors to show us houses, but he would never do anything about fixing his credit or saving for a down payment. I just knew that these things were non-negotiable for me. I needed to own a home because rent prices go up so quickly that long-term renting is a massive waste of money, and the ability to retire and not be in poverty in old age was also a must. I started to get very real about this stuff in my mid to late 20s, at which point I'd been married 5 to 7 years. He was a decade older than me and didn't seem to care about any of that. So I got divorced. Everyone judged the shit out of me. Multiple ones of my friends were lined up to date him the minute I moved out. My parents took his side, and I was just as alone in my conviction that I did the right thing as I thought I would be. 7 years later, it's all worked out great. I finished my PhD, moved to a city I've always wanted to live in, bought a house, invest aggressively enough to make up for the years I lost, am on track to retire at 58 years old, and have a partner who's everything I didn't even know I could want back then. To people who think they can't leave, there is a way, and you'll only regret not doing it sooner. Thank you so much for watching the whole video. Please leave a like and subscribe.